Marina by T.S. Eliot. Presented to you by Dr. Vinamrata.
Hello dear students. Today we are going to critically analyze the poetry Marina written by T.S. Eliot. Before understanding this poem, what we have to understand is two stories, and they are very interesting stories indeed. One is the story of Pericles, the Prince of Tyre, written by Shakespeare, and another one is the story of Hercules. And why are these two stories important? Because these two make or comprise of the crux of this poetry, because they are the backdrop on which the poetry has been written. So unless and until you are familiar with the story of Pericles and with the story of Hercules, you won't be able to understand Marina. So for your convenience, I have made two separate videos on Pericles and on Hercules, and the links of those two videos are attached in the description box, so you can go there and have a detailed view on these two stories. In the meanwhile, while explaining this video, I'll always be explaining the story in brief, but for detailed view I will advise you to go click on the description box, click on the links of these two stories and go through the stories. So let's begin with the story. So before starting on with the poetry, let's have a brief look on T.S. Eliot. Although T.S. Eliot is a famous writer, a critic, but still a brief synopsis. Thomas Stearns Eliot, 26 September 1888 to 4th of January 1965. He was a poet, essayist, publisher, playwright, critic, and editor. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri, America, and then he moved to England in 1914 at the age of 25 and became a British subject in 1927 at the age of 39. So we must not forget that after becoming the British subject, he left the citizenship of America. And Eliot is generally referred to as one of the pioneers of the new critics, and his criticism, his works on criticism, his theories like objective correlative and the theory of impersonality in criticism has been the crux of the new kind of poetry which was written, or new kind of literature which was being written in the modern era. And his theory of objectivity, which he propounded and which he very well implemented in his poetries, are worth mentioning. So his famous poems that are through and through based on the theory of objectivity, because nowhere he puts his personality. It's all in a very objective tone that he portrays his feelings in the form of poetry. So I would like to quote here Eliot when he says that poetry is not turning loose of emotion but an escape from emotion, or poetry is not turning loose of personality but an escape from personality. So according to Eliot, poet is just like a catalyst who is there for the invention of the poetry, whose presence is needed, but his own personality must not be mixed while composing the poem. But in this poetry you will find an exception, because Eliot wanted to become a father, and that paternal link is in this poetry when you will read Marina. But yes, again I would like to point out that although it is his feeling, his idea for paternity which is reflected in the poem, but still he is very objective in approach, and nowhere you will find Eliot's emotion, but it's through an objective way that he presents the feelings. So the famous poems of Eliot are The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, The Wasteland, of course, published in 1922, The Hollow Men, 1925, Ash Wednesday, 1930, Four Quartets, 1943, and his famous plays. He has also written plays. The most famous is Murder in the Cathedral, in 1935 and the cocktail party in 1949. And one more thing, very interesting thing about Eliot, that when we are talking about wasteland, in all of his poems you will see the disillusionment from this modern world and the falling down of the civilization, the crumbling of the human ethics and values, which is reflected in Eliot's writing. But the most important thing is, and very interesting thing is, his poetry Wasteland. In Wasteland, although he has talked extensively and given grotesque images from the present day scenario when the civilization is deteriorating, and he has obviously quoted mythology a lot. He has given references, a host of references from Greek and Roman mythology to biblical characters. But the most significant thing is, at the end of the Wasteland, he gives actually an answer to all these questions, and that answer is coming from an Upanishad. He quotes an Indian Upanishad saying, the last words is da da da. What the thunder said is the last chapter in the Wasteland, where the thunder says these three words da da da, which is the Indian Upanishadic concept of, he expands it saying datta dayadhavam dammita shanti shanti shanti. So if you have to attain peace, you have to keep in mind three words: datta, dayadhavam and dammita. Datta means to give away generously to the people who are in need. Dayadhavam means to show daya, to show mercy towards people, towards animals, towards everything which is in and around you. And dammita, to curb your senses, curb your desires, curb your passions, in to come down to a limited way of life, which was the Upanishadic concept, or which was the Vedic concept, which was the basic of Indian civilization from the very beginning, to be simple in living. So if you attain these three things according to Eliot, or actually quoting Upanishad, you will always attain peace. So okay, I am deviating from Marina. Coming back to Marina and coming back to T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1948, and he was also bestowed with the Order of Merit. Now about the poem, introduction to the poem. Marina is one of the 29 poems, means the number 29 in Eliot's series of the Ariel poems. It was first published in 1930. It is based on the Jacobean play Pericles, Prince of Tyre. Shakespeare is credited with the last acts of the play, the story of Pericles' separation from and reunion with his daughter Marina. Most scholars believe the opening are composed by an inferior collaborator. The play, however, was simply a catalyst for the poem and names after the lost daughter of Pericles, Marina. It is their reunion scene which inspires the poem, but the images and symbols used are very own of Eliot. So I told you in the very beginning only that there are two stories you have to follow. First is the story of Pericles, Prince of Tyre, because in that story Pericles, which is thought to be written by Shakespeare, but there is a dispute. In the Act 5, there is a reunion of Pericles with his daughter, because it is thought in the very beginning that his daughter Marina has been lost, and actually Pericles is made to believe that she has died. But in Act 5 of the play, they both reunite. Pericles recognizes Marina, and they both actually are happy at the end. So that is the basis of this poetry. The poetry begins with Pericles being unconscious by a shipwreck. He is on an island and Marina is brought to sing to him, and when Pericles opens his eyes, he sees Marina and he recognizes her, because last time he saw Marina was when she was very small, so he does not know how his daughter looks like, but he recognizes her by the face because she resembles her mother. And when they get into talking, first he feels that this face is resembling my wife's face, and when they talk, the unraveling is done that Marina is his own daughter. So that is the backdrop on which the poetry has been written, and that's why the title also given Marina. But the poetry has got many more things to unravel. It's the story is just the story of Marina or Pericles is just a backdrop on which the poem is written. The poem has got so many images, so many meanings, so many layers of symbols that we will explore while studying the poetry. Now, this is the full poetry, but before that, actually I would like to talk about two things. I told you there are two stories that we have to understand. So let me read it out. Marina is Eliot's touching personal poem. Although Eliot proposed the theory of impersonality, but here it is about his own feeling of becoming a father. The poem explores the theme of paternity by focusing on the rediscovery of the lost daughter of William Shakespeare's Pericles. Marina is the name of the daughter of Pericles, who has not seen her right from the birth, as he was running away from the enemy, facing miseries and threats on land and sea. It is in Act 5 of the play that Pericles finds out that the dancer and singer performing before him is none other than his daughter. The dancing girl reminds him of his wife Thaisa. He talks to the girl and is overjoyed to find that Marina is his daughter and her mother had died while giving birth to her. So, again I told you that I have made two separate videos on the story of Pericles and the other story, the story of Hercules. So, you can go and find it out in detail in the description box. Now, the full poem. The poem starts with these lines. Quis is locus, quae regio, quae mundi plaga, question mark. Now, these are the lines uttered by Hercules. That's why I was saying that there are two stories that are important. These are the lines uttered by Hercules, and that's why we have to understand the story of Hercules. So, coming to the story of Hercules. The opening lines of the poem is a Latin quote from the play Hercules Furnace, written by Lucius the younger Seneca, and these lines refer to the story of Hercules. Although it is written by these lines are written by Lucius, and it is penned down in the book Hercules Furnace, but Hercules is actually a mythological character whose story is written by Lucius, and these lines are taken from Lucius's play. So, what is the story of Hercules? The Greek or Roman mythology of Hercules. It narrates the story that Hercules was a man of great valor and strength, but in a fit of madness he killed his own wife and children. And when the frenzy subsides, Hercules comes back to his senses, and these lines are uttered. He is unable to understand or comprehend what has happened, and he asks, as soon as he comes back from his trance, he actually wakes up. Actually, he is in a kind of dreamy state or a kind of fit and a madness. When he comes out from that madness, he says that quis is locus, quae regio, quae mundi plaga, means what locale is this, what region, what place. So he is unable to understand where he is, what he has done, what is happening all around. So here again the theme of paternity explored. But the situation is antithesis when explored with the previous situation of the Pericles, because you see Pericles is reunited by his daughter, but Hercules is actually or has actually lost his children. So both are in juxtaposition with one another. Hercules' story is also exploring the theme of paternity. Pericles' story is also exploring the theme of paternity, but both of the cases the situations are different. Hercules is never going to find his children again, but for Pericles it is a happy note because Pericles has finally found Marina. So the king rises up to find back his daughter, which is the story of Pericles, but on the contrary Hercules has lost his children forever. Plus he has to also carry the burden of the death that is on his head. Hercules has to carry throughout his life the burden of killing his own children. So that is the main difference between these two stories. Now coming to the poem. So these are the starting lines which tells us that when Pericles has been washed ashore after shipwreck and he is in an unconscious state,
he opens his eyes by a soothing music which is heard, and that music is being sung by Marina. Till now he does not know that Marina is his own daughter, and after listening to the music, when he opens his eyes, he is unable to understand what place he has reached to, because before being unconscious he was on his ship and it was struggling in a storm. So when he rises up, he sees that he is in a totally different place, he is on an island. That's why he asked this question, that what region is this, what location is this, what locale is this, what place is this. And then continues, what seas, what shores, what grey rocks, and what islands, what water lapping the bow, and scent of pine and wood thrush singing through the fog, what images return, O my daughter. Now, when Pericles is slowly opening his eyes, he sees that he has come to some island, and he asks, what shore is this, what island is this, what rocks are here, what seas are here, what is the place that he has reached. Actually, he is trying to ask. And then he can slowly, when his senses are returning, he can listen to the song of the wood thrush singing, and it is coming, it is very foggy to him, because suddenly when you are coming from an unconscious state to consciousness, suddenly it is not becoming clear, it is not like the bright day, but things are first hazy and slowly they are becoming clearer. So it is just like as if the fog is being dissipated. So there is a fog in front of his eyes, and through that fog he is seeing images returning back, and he can also smell now things. The smell of pine can be addressed by him, and the song can be heard by him. So all these senses, nose, ears, all are working now. And when he sees the image, he sees that there are some images which are returning back to his mind. So what is this image? Because in front of him Marina is singing, and he quickly associates the face of Marina with his wife's face, and he says that okay, this is the same face of my wife. So how is that I am seeing the face of my wife in this girl's face? So somewhere or the other the images are returning back to him, the images of his known people, and basically his wife. And then after saying this, there are certain things which come to his mind. Those who sharpen the tooth of dog, meaning death. Those who glitter with the glory of hummingbird, meaning death. Those who sit in the sty of contentment, meaning death. Those who suffer the ecstasy of animals, meaning death. You see, from the image of the sea that he has started with, and then image of his daughter and his wife coming in front of him, now he is talking about his life, what he has done throughout his life. And you see, Eliot is so deeply touching upon the situation of the modern man, because what we are doing, we are running after so many different things, not understanding that this power, this position, this money is all but a matter of time, and the most important thing is death, which is inevitable, which has to come. But not realizing that fact, what we do, we keep on engaging ourselves in the sensuous pleasures, we keep on engaging ourselves in material possessions. That was the same thing what Pericles was doing. He was engaged in his worldly affairs. He was a king, he was looking after his kingdom, he was going on voyages, and in the meanwhile he could have taken care of Marina, he could have returned for her, searching for her even earlier, but he did not. And when he came back at last, she was gone, she was dead, as told to him. So that all comes to his mind. And then these are these four things that he mentions: those who sharpen the tooth of the dog, or those who glitter with the glory of hummingbird, or those who sit in the sty of contentment, or those who suffer the ecstasy of animals. All these four are nothing but the parts of the 7 cardinal sins. In the Bible there is a reference, actually it's not very clearly mentioned in the Bible, but in Dante's works also you will find its description, that 7 sins are described, and all those 7 sins he has penned down. Eliot has penned those 7 sins down to 4, and he is talking about those sins. It is revenge, it is sloth, it is gluttony, it is um, power, money, and such and such. So here he is talking about all those sins, and he has penned them down to 4, and he says that those who sharpen the tooth of dog, meaning death, means those who are too much obsessed with taking revenge or becoming more powerful, ultimately what will happen? Is there anything permanent to it? No. Ultimately they will go, or they will fall prey to one of the sins. And what is the implication of committing a sin? Obviously in this life you will suffer death, but after this life also, will you be awarded in the heaven or hell? No, you will obviously go in a hell if you are committing a sin. And then those who glitter with the glory of the hummingbird, means those who are over showy, those who have the sense of vanity in them, again they are also going to suffer. Those who sit in the sty of contentment, so those who are greedy, those who are not contented, they are also going to suffer. And those who are suffering with the ecstasy of animals, just like the animals, the one such sin is the gluttony. So if you are committing gluttony, if you are like an animal full of animal instinct, again it is a sin. So these are the sins which continuously Pericles had been committing. He was fighting, he was accumulating wrath, he was accumulating gluttony, he was full of vanity and pride, and he was accumulating riches. All these were sins which he was committing, not knowing that ultimately, or not realizing that the fact that ultimately all these sins are going to bring or do wrong to him. Art becomes insubstantial, reduced by a wind, a breath of pine, and the wood song fog by his grace dissolved in place. So again he comes back. Till now he was talking about pine and wood thrush song, then he moved on to the 7 sins, then again he comes back. And he comes back and he says that whatever he has done till now in his life, Pericles, whatever he has done in his life, has by now reduced to a wind. It is of no use to him. If his daughter is no more, what will he do of his power and possessions? So what only he can listen to now, or what he can only feel now, is the breath of the pine. Now his unconsciousness, when he is coming back to life, he is realizing the smell and the song of the wood song, wood thrust, sorry. And by this grace he is dissolved in this place, and then he is seeing a face in front of him, and that face is becoming less clear and clearer, and the pulse in his arm is also becoming less strong and stronger, means slowly he is gaining consciousness. The face is becoming clearer to him, his pulses is becoming stronger, so he is gaining, coming back to senses, he is gaining consciousness. Given or lent? Question mark. More distant than stars and nearer than the eye. Whispers and small laughter between leaves and hurrying feet, under sleep where all the waters meet. So again he is uttering all these things because he is in a kind of unconscious state. Slowly he is gaining consciousness, but he is totally not in full consciousness. And then he can hear people around him talking, whispering. And because you see, when Pericles had been washed ashore, obviously there are group of people who are gathered all around, so he can listen to their laughter, he can listen to the leaves and the rustling of the leaves and the hurrying of the feet, but he is under sleep, he is not totally in the consciousness. And where is he? Where all the waters meet. Why? Because he is on a shore, he had been shipwrecked, and now he is washed on a shore, and there are people around him, people are trying to make him come to consciousness, and in that endeavor only they had brought Marina to sing to him, so he can listen to the song also, he can smell also. Now slowly he is gaining consciousness, and now he can realize that there are some movements all around him, the movement of the people, the laughing, their whispering, he can understand now. Again he goes back to the images of his life, what he has done till now. And this is a very significant paragraph because it also signifies life and the metaphor of life. because Eliot actually is trying to compare life to a voyage, and in these lines he is comparing the life of a person to a voyage which he takes on a ship. And the thing is that not realizing that the fact that ship is not something which is permanent, one day or the other you will have to leave the ship and the ship will be wrecked somehow or the other, but still we believe that this is the reality and we keep on living in it. In Indian mythology we can say that Bhav Sagar, the life is always compared to that Bhav Sagar or that Moh and Maya in which we are trapped, not realizing the fact that ultimately this is not the reality. The reality is beyond this world, beyond this mortal body. So here is the metaphor for ship, because Pericles' life has always been spent on ships, so he is giving that metaphor also. Bowsprit cracked with ice and paint cracked with heat. Bowsprit is a part of a ship, and he's saying that if there is a ship, it is going out on voyages, so it is not always in a good condition. It sometimes wrecks and then again it is painted. The paints also crack with heat, then again they are made up. I made this, I have forgotten and remember. And again I made this is obviously he is talking about Marina, because he had created an individual, a daughter, he had created her, but then he did not take care of her. He left her for a long time, and when he returned back to bring her back, she was gone. So he says that I made this, I have forgotten, and then again when he is seeing this girl, he remembers her and remember. The rigging weak and the canvas rotten. The life, he is comparing his life to a ship, so the ship is now becoming rotten. It's becoming rigging. The ship will always not remain in the same condition. Obviously, it will deteriorate. So he is also, Pericle is also comparing the ship to his old age, which he is achieving now, because now Pericles is becoming old. He is comparing his old age to a ship which has long traveled through the sea, and now it is cracking, it is giving way, now it can not hold any longer. So between one June to another September, made this unknowing, half conscious, unknown my own, the board strake leaks. So again he is taking the names of the various parts of the ship. His ship is leaking, and from June to September he kept on moving around that ship, and he was half conscious about this fact that it is all futile. At the end of the day, what is important is your family, your daughter, your life, but he never actually paid much attention to that thing, and now he is suffering. So the garboard is leaking, the seams need clocking. Again, all the parts of the ships are being mentioned, that all the parts of the ship are to be repaired now. He is becoming old, just like his body, which is now giving way, and it is on the verge of dying. Because at the old age, every body part needs mending. This form, this face, this life, living to live in a world of time beyond me. Let me resign my life for this life. Now he's saying that he has lived lot of his life on the sea, on the ships, and he has realized this fact that it is of no use. His life is now deteriorating. He is reaching to that time of his life when there is not or nothing much left. So he thinks that it is the best time to retire, to resign from this life, the life of seas and voyages, and come to the life of becoming a family man. But now he is even more afraid of the fact that his family is now nowhere to be found. Resign my life for this life, my speech for that unspoken. The awakened lips parted, the hope, the new ship. So he wants to have new hope, and that hope he is finding in the face of Marina, because now slowly he is coming to realize that she is only his daughter, and he sees that okay, now he will have a new awakening in his life, and now he will speak whatever he has not spoken till now because he is going to express his love for his daughter, which till now he was unable to express. What seas, what shores, what granite islands towards my timbers. Timbers, again his ship, because a ship is made up of wood, so he is referring to it as timber, and he's saying that every time there is a shipwreck, it is because of some granite or some seashore, some rocks has hit the ship. So he's saying that any time may come when his ship will sink, his ship will be struck by granite islands. So it is coming towards, the granite islands are coming towards his timbers, means his days are now coming to an end. So before that, he is happy that finally he has found his daughter, and he can listen to the wood thrush calling through the fog. So this is the song of the wood thrush, is actually the song of Marina, and he feels that Marina is calling out towards him, and finally he is happy at the fact that he has finally found his long lost daughter, my daughter. So he ends the poetry, Eliot ends the poetry with these lines, my daughter. That is all basically about this poetry. We have actually taken up in detail, line by line, whatever Eliot has tried to explain in this poem, but a little bit of more explanation we'll have. The poem begins with Pericles lying unconscious on an island after a shipwreck. In half-conscious state, he listens to a song which wakes him up slowly. He is unaware of the fact that the girl who is singing the song is no other than his own lost daughter, Marina. And she, due to unfortunate circumstances, has reached this place, and here she is brought to sing and wake up the unconscious Pericles. Eliot also refers to the 7 deadly sins, that are pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony and sloth. Although here in the poetry only 4 of the sins are mentioned, the poet wants to draw our attention to the fact that humans generally tend to get trapped in such worldly vices, just like Pericles, and he, Pericles, has forgot his duty towards his family. He, when after a long time came back to find his daughter, she was gone. He blames himself for his greed and hunger for power and money and other such worldly attachments that led to this happening. Pericles further in the poem mentions him getting back to his senses. His vision becomes clearer, and he feels that the face he sees in front him resembles his wife. The situation becomes clear, and Pericles, after some conversation, recognizes his daughter. The poem also deals extensively with the metaphor of ship and sea. Where human life is compared to a voyage of the sea, people get so busy in their voyage that they keep themselves busy in acquiring possessions and power. But now Pericles realizes that above all, what is important is family and love. He plans now to resign his further life of a wanderer and keep company with his daughter. So that is all about the poetry, and you can see that there are lots and lots of images of shores, ships and sea coming throughout the poetry. So that is one of the unique features of this poem. And on that note, I would like to end up this poetry. I am sure you must have understood it. If yes, then please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment. Thank you.